Hi, in this session, we'll learn about user-defined function in Microsoft SQL Server. Now, what is a user-defined function? So user-defined functions are functions which is similar to your stored procedures as we studied in the last session. Again, that means it is a pre-compiled block of TSQL statement, which is stored with the name and executed. And we use those particular functions to repeatedly execute this. Once you have written this particular function, we can keep calling again and again. Now, the major difference between the procedure and the function is, in the case of procedure, we cannot use a return keyword to return a value back. So only way to return a value is through the mode of parameters. But in the case of function, we always have to use a return keyword to return a value, and it's a mandatory that we have to use a return keyword to return a value. That means a function always returns a value. Since it always returns a value, so we use the functions in a situations where we want to perform some calculations. Okay, so it might be arithmetic calculations or it might be a text manipulations and things. Also, we can use this. Now, let us see an example of how do we create a user-defined functions. Actually, we have two types of user-defined functions. We have table valued functions as well as the scalar value functions. So in this session, we'll see about the scalar valued function. Scalar value is function which returns a single value. Okay, thing, as the name says, scalar. And when I say table value is nothing but a function which returns a set of records. Okay, first we'll see about the scalar value. Now, the syntax for creating a function is we say create function to say we are trying to create what type of object. Then that is followed with the name of the functions. Okay, and it can take the parameters. Okay, and so it takes the parameters. It can be 0, 1 or multiple parameters. That is, we have declared the variable. And one thing when you observe here, when it is a parameter, we use in the brackets. So always you can see when you use any of the built-in function also, it might be a length function, it might be a round function or any of the built-in functions. So always use the brackets. So here also we use the brackets to define the parameter. Okay, thanks. And you can see here it says returns what type of output is going to return. And then we'll have a block of statements. In the block of statements, so we can write a multiple select statement, okay, the various DML operations, even with a programming construct. But at the end of this one is it always have to have a return keyword to return a value back. Okay, that was a syntax. So that means we have to say create function, name of the functions. We pass the parameters. Okay, that parameters has to be defined inside the the brackets. It has to say returns what type of output is going to return. And in the begin, that is the body of the statement. So we write a block of codes, so which can contain any DML, multiple DML statements, as well as the programming construct. And it always has to return the value using returns output, what output is going to return. Now, I want to create a function. Like, see how we have a lot of built-in functions. It might be text functions and number functions and things. The same way, here also you're creating a functions where you want to have your own logical code in that. Okay. Now, I have an employees table. What I want is, I want to calculate the tax for the employees. So based on their salary. And I want to calculate the tax based on the slabs. See, we have the employees here getting the different salaries, 7,000, 6,000, we have 10,000, we have 16, 15,000, and so on. Now, if the employee is earning more than 10,000, what I want is whatever their salary is there, into 30% tax has to be calculated. Okay, 10,000 and above, more than 10,000, I want to calculate 30% tax of 30% of their salary as a tax. If it is more than 5,000, I want to calculate 20%. And if it is less than 5,000, I want to calculate 10% of their salary as a tax. This is what is the calculations I want to perform. Now let us see how do we do this. I'm just creating a function here. Now this has to work for every record. for every employee. It has to read for every employee whatever is salary, and then it has to give the what is taxable amount. Okay, so I'm creating a function which is going to take an input as employee ID. Since my employee ID is of character, so I'm just passing the year input also as character. Okay, fine. So now it is going to return the output which is having a number and decimal. So I'm giving a data type as return money. Okay, thanks. That is my header part. So I'm telling function by name is tax, which is taking the employee ID as the input and is going to return an output of money. Okay, some numeric output is going to return. Now we define the body of the statement. So when you go to the body of the statements, I have to calculate the tax based on the salary. So here I'm declaring two variables here. One is to have the tax amount and the other one is to know what is the actual salary of the employee based on the every employee ID. So I'm declaring two variables. So when I'm defining it inside this particular block statement, so you can see I'm using a declare keyword to declare the variables. Declare tax amount is one variable and salary is another variable of type money. So since you're dealing with the currency formats, so I'll say money. Then my statement is select the variable salary is equal to salary from the employees, where employee ID is matching to the input that has been provided. So what will happen in this case here? So whatever the input is being given, based on that particular input, it is going to get the salary, and that value will be added to this particular variable called as sal. Okay, so based on the employee ID, so it will fetch a record. So whatever the salary is there for that employee ID, it will add to this. And this is going to work for the employee ID as the input parameter. Okay, so based on the employee ID provided, first it is going to fetch a record based on the matching employee ID, get the salary, store into the variable. And then I want to perform the application logic. So what is this one? So first I'm capturing the salary, then trying to check what is the value of salary. If the value is 10,000 or more than 10,000, okay, I'm taking salary into 0.3. 0.3 is 30% of the salary as my tax amount. Okay, if it is more than 10,000, if not, so I'm writing an else if the salary is, if it is not more than 10,000, we check whether it is more than 5,000. If it is 5,000 or above, in that case, whatever the salary is there into 20%. 20% of the salary I'm storing as a taxable amount. If it is not satisfying in both the criteria, not more than 10, not more than 5,000, then else is less than 5,000. Whatever the salary is there, 10% of that is a taxable amount. Okay, I'm capturing this. Okay, so based on the salary, we are trying to find out what is a taxable amount. So if it is more than 10,000, we are giving 30%. If it is 5,000, more than 5,000, so we are giving 20%. If not, we are giving 10% of your salary as a tax amount. And I say return the tax amount. Okay, so we have a begin to define the what is a block of code, and we are begin has to close with the end, which is closing here. Okay, this is how we have given this particular user defined functions. Okay, let me compile this, select this, execute. Yeah, commands are completed successfully. That means this procedure function is being created, which is going to take employee ID as an input and then check what is the salary based on the provided employee ID. And if the salary, and then it will check where the various slabs, which slabs it satisfies. Accordingly, it will calculate the tax amount and it will return that as a taxable amount. Now, how do we call this? To call this particular stored procedure, call this particular functions. See, one thing is I can call this in your select statement. Okay, since it is using a select statement. So I say select star from employees. So when I say select star from employees, this is going to give me all the employee details. Okay, all the details of the employees. Okay, all the details, fine. But I want to know even the taxable amount. So if I have to get the taxable amount, what I do, I'll just say comma. I need to call this particular function. Now, this function is provided in the database by name Sadik. Okay, so when I'm calling a function, you have to use a fully qualified name. So that is your database name. So that is Sadik is the database. Under that, the default owner under which the object gets created is a DBO. So there is a database owner dot the name of the function. Okay, I say tax is the name of the function. Now, this particular function is receiving what input as employee ID is a variable. So which is nothing but the actual employee ID. So I'll say every row has an employee ID. So the actual employee ID need to be passed. Say emp ID. That's it. Now let me run this particular query. And you can see here, okay, so we have this particular new column here, which is nothing but the taxable amount. So this is your taxable amount. Okay, so you can see if the employee is earning 7,000, he has to pay 20% tax. 1,400 is the tax. 6,500, 20% has to be paid. So when an employee is earning, say example 3,000, which is coming in the less than 5,000 slab. So only 10%, only 300 is a tax. For 2,800, 280 is a tax. For 5,000, you can see it is paying 20% tax. Okay, so if it is higher values, so we can see here. So when you look into this one here is, again, so this employee here is earning how much? 16,500. So he has to pay 30% tax. For 11,000, you can see 3,300 as a tax. So which is nothing but the 30% of the earnings they have to pay as a tax. So this is how we are able to calculate. So we can give alias name for this as taxable amount. Fine. This is how we use this particular, the user-defined functions. Now, this is the scalar function. Scalar function means it gives you a single value. See, one thing is, since it returns a value, always returns a value, I can use this in the select statement. And in the select statement, it is working for every employee ID. It is taking the employee ID. Okay, based on the employee ID, it is calling the function. And for each employee ID, it is trying to execute this particular statement. For each, based on the employee ID, it is trying to get the salary, store into this variable, and trying to check under what slab it comes. And accordingly, it is calculating the tax amount and it is returning the tax amount. And we are able to easily find out here. Fine. This is here. Next is, we'll also see another example of a table valued function. Now, to go with this particular table valued functions, so I have some tables here. I'm using a Northwind database. So I have a table here called as categories table. Categories table. So when you look into this, it shows me the details of the categories. We can see all the category ID, name, description, and we do also have a products table. Okay, so the products table has the information about the products, like we have a product ID, name, supplier, category ID, and the details. Now, I don't have a category name. Now, what I want to do is, I want to write a function where if I give a name of a category, say beverages, it has to show me all the products of beverages. Okay. So, but I want to show as a join product. Okay. And the product details and the category details, but filter based on the product name. Okay. So that means if I say beverages, so beverages is one. So all those particular, what I say, categories, which is matching to one is the beverages. It has to show me that. So if I say like seafood, it has to show me all the products which is having category 8. Okay, that is a seafood. I want to show the products and the category details together. So for this, okay, let us see how do we create a table valued functions. See, when I talk about a table valued functions, is nothing but a function which returns output in the form of a table. Okay, table is nothing but collection of records. So for creating this function, the syntax goes something like this. Create function, name of the function as usual, and then it'll have a parameters. In the parameter, so I'm just taking the input as category name, okay, which is of type varchar. Now, since category name is a character type, and given a max length of 100. Okay, so that means I want this function to receive the input as category name, and then you can see here we say returns table. See, in the case of scalar value, we say return data type. But here, instead of a data type, I'm using a keyword as table. That means it is going to return output of table type. Then as, and we write the body of the statement. In the body of the statement is very simple. We say return and the select statement. Return followed with the select statement. But I want a select statement to be a little customized. So like using a join. So selecting the columns from both the tables, products and the categories. This is, I have written a join here. Product ID, name, unit price. I'm getting this data from the products table. And I want the category name, which I'm getting from the categories table. So I'm getting this particular columns from products and the categories table. So I'm using a join. And how these two tables have joined. So these two tables, the common column here, when you see, is nothing but it's a product. When you see the common column is the category ID, is the common column. So I'm just telling the, okay, on the common column is category ID, but it also has to filter. It also has to filter based on the category name. Okay, so whatever the input is being received based on this particular input, it has to get me the data. Okay, based on the category name, it has to get me the product details with the category name from both the tables. Okay, fine. This is a simple join that I have written. So we have studied with the joins, and we can look into the previous video. I have it on the joins. Okay, thanks. Okay, so that's it. So when I run this, okay, as created, okay, there is already, I have just created some time before, so it is there. So now how do we call this one? Now to call this, so what is this? This is just going to return a select state. Okay, to call this one, so this is called like this: select star from, because it returns a table, no? So it will be called like a table. Select star from the name of the function. Select star from the name of the function, and I provide the input. So based on this input, you can see when I say seafood, it is returning all the seafood items. Now, if I say beverages, so this is going to return all the beverages. Okay, so I want to return, say, example, condiments. Okay, so I'll just pass the input here and things. So I can say, is this something similar to your parameterized view? So in the case of view, we cannot have parameters. Okay, in the procedures we have a parameters, views we cannot have a parameters, but this is not a parameterized view, but it is something like a parameterized view. It is just like calling a view, select star from the name of the view. Okay, but it's not a view, it's a function. Okay, and so what happens in the case of views, you cannot have parameters, but here I can have a parameters. So that means it is returning an output of a select statement. It's returning the output as a table set. Okay, but based on the parameter. Okay, so thanks. Yeah, so this is what is a table valued function. Okay, yeah, this is about the functions in the Microsoft SQL Server. Thank you.